California was always nice. Always hot, but, still beautiful. Sometimes I'd often catch myself sweating without even knowing it. But what's worse than that? Hunting in that weather. My father, he would drag me there when it was 98 degrees outside. How can you stand that? But I still regret that day. That one day. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. After 3 years going hunting and going through all this heat, I'd finally grown used to it and actually kind of liked it. March 7th, 2005. I decided to go on a hunting trip with my dad. That day, I decided that I would hang out with him instead of going with my friend Robert, and I thought it would be fun since we were camping. On the trip, it was me, my friend William, and my dad's hunting buddies, Ron, Abraham, and Hank. These dudes were all in their 40s, except for me and William. We made it to the area at about 5:30 in the afternoon, so there was no time to do anything but set up camp. When I pulled my iPod out, Ron raised an eyebrow. "You know that this is meant to be an outdoors hunting trip, right?" I looked up aggravated. "No, I'm just playing with you, buddy," he said. I laughed and finished unpacking. Me and William would be sharing a tent, decently sized with a rainproof top. My dad would share one with Ron. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot to mention this. Ron is William's dad, so that's why we're so close. Hank and Abraham would share a small trailer over there next to the trees that they'd brought along. My dad was kind of mad about this, but it would make sense that they were old, I didn't want to say anything to them like that, So, anyway, let me get back to my story. Around 10 o'clock, we had a fire set up, and we were telling stories. First, Ron told one about a small girl dying on a playground that's ghost haunted the school. Lame. Then William told one about a rapist Santa Claus, and then Abraham told his. Abraham sat back in his chair. "Before I start this, I'd like to thank Isaac and his son Ned for inviting us to this trip." Then he looked around as if someone or something was listening. Then he began his story. Everything further is coming from Isaac and Abraham. But Abraham's telling the story. So keep listening. I'll let you know whenever the story ends. I understand that Isaac is pretty mad about me and Hank bringing our trailer and all that, but now you will discover why we brought it. I'm at least 10 years older than all of you. Everyone chuckled. Me and Hank used to be far out into these woods, go beyond these mountains deeper and deeper. Where there was no signal, we hiked there so there was no transportation to take us back. We had to hike about 10 miles just to get there. So, I just want to let you know, out there's something more than an animal, a beast, a man. In fact, man tremble at its name. We call it Antlers. At this point, I was hiding under my covers, trembling. My dad laid a hand over my shoulder, and he continued his story. When I was in my 30s, me and Hank planned to hike down and look for some hogs that we had seen the previous month. We set up all of our cameras and hunting equipment up into the trailer. We made our way out there. It was late. We set up camp. When I finally got to lay on my cot, Hank gave me a shove. All day we'd been hiking and he wanted to wake me up. I sat up, and Hank said he heard something that sounded like rustling trees, and he thought it might be a deer or something. I thought he was crazy, but I heard like the same thing. It was like two wooden blocks being banged together. The sound of antlers. He stopped again in the middle of the story, looking around. Then he continued. We eventually ignored it and went back to bed. That morning, we awoken to the sound next to our tent. We sprang out of our bed to see what it was, and there was nothing. 2 hours later, we ate breakfast and was cleaning out my gun whenever I heard Hank let out a yelp. I looked at his face. It was pale, looking like he was gonna upchuck or something. I looked and I saw it. A large net containing a bunch of rocks, material I couldn't make out. But dangling from that net were in fact antlers. That day we didn't go hunting. We instead tried to cut down the net. We set up the net. We sat on a tree and we tried to cut it down. See, we started climbing the tree and made his way up the tree. Sorry guys, I'm a little stuttered. Hank made his way up the tree and he found something next to the knot tied to the tree. It was a tape. A tape. Dirty. So dirty we couldn't even read the label. Not if there even was anything there. Couldn't tell. After he cut the rope, they fell to the ground. We opened the net to find that unknown material was all bones. Couldn't tell what animals they belonged to. Hank guessed that they were goat or deer. The second night was a lot more quiet. I felt my eyes finally closing whenever I was relaxed. At about 2 in the morning, yes, 2 in the morning, I awoke to hear leaves crunching outside, like someone was walking or skittering around outside. I was even more terrified when I seen Hank asleep next to me. I nudged him. One eye open. "What?" I whispered to him. "Someone's out there." He nodded, grabbing his 9mm. He opened the tent just enough to peek. That's when they stopped. The footsteps stopped, and Hank didn't see anything. I looked at him. He looked at me. We both shrugged. Then he laid down and held the 9mm close to him. I grabbed my machete for extra protection. Then I realized that those did not sound human. They sounded more like hooves. The next morning, me and Hank decided that we would head back, but I was convinced to at least go on one hike. Try and see if we could see anything. I mean, this trip didn't have anything but seeing a bunch of bones in a net. We walked and we headed out into the woods. Then we seen a field. There was a group of trees. But between those trees was a man holding something, lifting it up. Just as we looked at each other, we heard the sound of an unnatural screech, and we ran all the way back to camp and grabbed nothing but food and ran back to our vehicles. For the past 2 years, I've heard calls from people telling me that they'd heard the same thing, and it doesn't surprise me because it's something we call antlers. He then ended walking over to his trailer. Hank followed. That camping trip was not what you expected. Nope. We didn't find anything. No, we didn't catch any video. No, we didn't see no bones, sticks, or antlers. But now, as it reminds me, 6 years later, I was cleaning out my closet when we were getting ready to move, and I found my old hunting bag, since I'd gotten a new one that following trip. And I found blood-covered antlers. Today I'm going to see Abraham and see if he's still around. I want to get more information about this. So thank you for listening. I'm going to make another vlog over this, and hopefully I get some more detail for you guys. Thank you for listening.